Hey, welcome to Clear Mountain Monastery Wednesday evening interview. Today we're very happy to have our friend Ajahn Dan Thiracitto. Ajahn, very good to see you.
Nice. Thanks for the invitation.
Yeah. So I'll start off reading just a short little biography. So Ajahn Dan Thiracitto was born in Germany in 1980 and encountered Buddhism through Vietnamese Pure Land practice in 2001 in Australia. He explored Tibetan and Chinese Buddhism before embracing the Thai forest tradition, inspired by Luang Por Chah, Longtha Mahabua, and the Pali Canon. Ordained in 2011 in Thailand's Dhammayut order, he had trained for 4 years in the lineage of Longtha Mahabua and Luang Por Chah in Loi province with Luang Por Nippon and Thanajan Dik. Since 2013, he has largely lived an independent nomadic lifestyle of tudong, or walking pilgrimage. He spent 5 vasas, range retreats at Wat Vananachat and affiliated monasteries, including a year with Thanajan Jayasaro. Since 2019, he is based in Nan province, while regularly undertaking long-distance pilgrimages in Thailand and other countries like Malaysia, Nepal, India, Taiwan, Germany, Vietnam, and Australia. He currently resides at a small branch monastery on the outskirts of Chiang Mai City in Thailand. So, yeah, interesting biography, and would love if you could just fill some of that out, particularly how you moved from just studying Buddhism in Germany to actually ordaining in Thailand and in the Dhammayut order in this forest tradition.
I didn't study Buddhism per se. I studied Chinese studies, and that came from my basically conversion to Buddhism, which happened the year before when I was 21, 2001, 2002, when I was in Australia. A friend introduced me to the teachings, and I liked it. So I changed my plan for study. I wanted to study some engineering or something, and then I became Buddhist, and I was Mahayana Buddhist in the Vietnamese tradition, as you said, and my first teacher said you have to study Chinese because all the scriptures are in Chinese. So I didn't know about Theravada at all for a long time, actually. So that's what I did. I went back to Germany and studied some Chinese, but kept my eye on Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, and so on. So then I came to my graduation year and went through adult life for around 9 years. And relationships, a few of them, traveled the world, had a good life, but then you get a bit, dukkha is there, suffering is there, mental suffering, and the older you get. And I was around 29, and I got a premature midlife crisis, so to speak, and that reminded me again of that peace I felt back in the monastery in Australia, like years ago, where I learned some meditation. And I let it slide for a few years. And then I went to the internet, and then Ajahn Google and Ajahn YouTube helped me to find some good information and some good teachers. And I found Ajahn Brahm. He was quite helpful, bringing you kind of out of a funk, out of a depressive episode with his, more jokey style. And then I found Ajahn Jayasaro, and then the Krooba Ajahns, Thai Krooba Ajahns, Longtha Mahabua, Ajahn Chah. And their teaching really inspired me. When I read their teachings, it felt like it comes from the heart. They speak about an experience in their simple own language and just express it in their daily normal language. And that just touched me. There was something more solid, more earthy there. And so I became interested in the forest tradition and collected all the material I could on the internet back in the days. And then I found a German translation of Ajahn Mahabua's infamous or famous talk where he spoke about his enlightenment experience. I think you know that one, where he started to cry, where his tears run down his face. It's really controversial until this day in Thailand. He gets criticized for it because they say Arahants, they cannot cry. But for me, it was a game changer. I read this, I think it was German translation, Anumodana for whoever that translated that piece. I read it in my room, and when I was finished, I also was crying, and I felt, they are still living Arahants in the world. It's just what I felt. My faith just grew intensely, that there's still living teachers out there who realize Nibbana, the end of mental suffering. And that inspired me. And I was searching for a monastery, and I found a monastery in Germany. Just a brand new monastery opened up, Muttodaya Monastery. And I went there as a layperson for practice and getting some information. And there I decided to become a monk, seeing these Western monks, that they actually can live like that. And they were all nice. And the practice there kind of developed, got some peace. And then I decided I want to ordain. And then I wrapped up my life. It took a few months to wrap up everything, finish my university. And then I went to Thailand searching for an Ajahn to ordain. And for me, it was clear it should be the Dhammayut order. I still have great faith in Ajahn Chah. He's unique. But I did not want to, how to say it, I had some ditthimana, I had some, some conceit that I did not want to get taught by Westerners. It cannot be the real deal. Like Westerners teaching Westerners, that cannot be the thing. It must be an Asian person. The real gurus, they're all Asians. That's how I felt. And I wanted a real, Arahant who's fierce, who teaches me like Ajahn Man, Ajahn Mahabua. And finally I got it. If I liked it, is another thing.
Ajahn.
So I knew about Nana. Yeah, please.
Oh no, please continue. Yeah.
Yeah, I knew about Wat Banana chart, and that's the first recommendation Ajahn Chatamalo in Germany gave me. But I said, no, I want a real Krooba Ajahn, a Thai person. So he gave me Lumpur Toi as the only address, actually, and Bandar, but in Bandar you cannot ordain. And so I ended up in Bandar first, and then I wanted to ordain there, but I didn't know that Ajahn Mahabua was on his deathbed. Actually, 3 days later, he passed away. And so I was a bit disappointed. But the first foreign monk I met there, he passed away already, Ajahn Piot, Krooba Piot. He said, don't feel sad. You're actually quite lucky, because there will be a foreign disciple, quite a famous monk. It was Ajahn Dik Silaratano, comes to pay his final respect to his teacher. And he lives in Loi province with another Thai Krooba Ajahn. And he has already a few foreign disciples, and maybe he can take you on and you can ordain there. And that's actually what happened. Ajahn Dik came the next day. I got a meeting with him, 15 minutes of talk. I liked him, he liked me, I think, and he took me on to this monastery, which was not his monastery, but a Thai Krooba Ajahn, and his name was Lumpur Nippon. And I stayed there for 3 to 4 years. Yeah.
We'll get to ask you about that journey as well. But I feel like we would be remiss to not sort of pause on that moment you spoke about with Longtama Mahabua. And you're right, it's pretty unprecedented for an Arahant, or someone who many believe to be one, to speak openly. And I know, Longta spoke about how that he wanted people to know it was still possible. And I have seen that video. Would you speak, because the deep Thai Dhamma you're talking about is really epitomized by Longtama Mahabua, and it seems like he was kind of this lighthouse on your path as well. Who is Longtama Mahabua, and what do you remember about that experience he described, and any other kind of things around him for those who've never heard of this being?
Yeah, a disclaimer. Actually, I never met him in person. Like my Balami were not up to that. He was still alive in the monastery, but he was on his deathbed in his kuti, and there was this huge queue. I think you have to wait for 2 hours to just get a glimpse of him. And I did not want to do this charade. I felt it's not proper just to have a glimpse on a dying man. I find it, but now I know this is like an honor. Just lay your eyes, darshan on a Krooba Ajahn of such caliber, which I regret, but that's what I did. So he was still living, but I have not even seen it with my physical eyes. So basically, I never lived with him. That's why I cannot speak from own experience. But Ajahn Dik, told us a lot of stories about him, and obviously the books, the Dhamma talks. You get the gist. What type of teacher he was. He was famous for me. He was the famous monk in the 90s and 2000s in Thailand. He was up there. He was in the newspaper every second day or something. He was a late disciple of Ajahn Man, and so we believe he, understood the practice and liberated himself, achieved Nibbana, became an Arahant, fully enlightened one. So in our tradition, we believe that. And what many other teachers of his generation say, that he is the closest to teaching style and character of Ajahn Mun himself. And I think that make a big contribution. There was this kind of harshness, this fierceness, and this solid conviction. And he just went, after he kind of finished the practice, he went back to his home village to, be close to his family and maybe to give, opportunity for them to make merit, and just had a small monastery, maybe with 1-2 monks. And his reputation and his teaching style, which was effective for many Isan monks at the time, spread wide and far, and they came and gathered around him and basically forced him to be a teacher, and he became a big one. And he's kind of, you can say, traditional and conservative. He wanted to keep that original Ajahn Mun Tudanga or Tudong practice lifestyle alive, and which he was successful. Yeah.
And in terms of kind of the faith that you had arise around him, do you remember anything from his description of his enlightenment experience that you could share, or any story from Ajahn Dick about him? Just something to kind of give that side of this being.
Yes, something particular. It's just, in his case, I thought about it, that in his case, he started, I think he finished the practice 54, around that, quite early, around in the early 50s. And since then, recording material, recordings came into the world. Again, Ajahn?
Is that age 54 or not 1954?
No, the 1954, as I remember. A few years after 49, when Ajahn Mun passed away, he finished the practice, I think. And basically, since the 50s, that man or that monk was teaching. And what was special also in Buddhist history, which many people don't think about, there are recordings, audio and video recordings, but first audio recordings of a liberated person teaching the Dhamma, which is now still accessible to us, wherever, on a click of a button. But you then have 50 years, and he still lived 50 years from that point on, and the consistency of his teaching, that is also impressive. Many people criticize him. Yeah, he made it up. He's not a real arahant. But you can go back to the earliest, to tapes from the 60s, and he teaches exactly the same style, the same stuff. He never alters his experience. As you know, if you have not the real deal, after time, your memory changes, you get new information, and your output becomes a bit altered. And with Lungta Mahabua or the real deal Ajahns, I find there is a consistency, how they describe their experience and how they teach. And what stories? He's famous for being a strict and fierce teacher. The stories of Ajahn Dick, there's Ajahn Dick never gave, it's hard to find Dhamma talks of Ajahn Dick, but I think in Abhayagiri, he gave a Dhamma talk once and got asked about his experience with Ajahn Mahabua. And if someone's interested, can check this talk out. He gives a lot of inside baseball there. And I think all of us would not have survived being an assistant monk for 17 years, so close to Lungta Mahabua, also called kind of the tiger, I don't want, it kind of sounds negative to the people who don't know this kind of, monastic tudong culture. But the positive sides is that he was scrutinized by so many people, by so many other Ajahns, challenged, and he had the Dhamma, and he never faltered. Even the whole country, once in the end of his life, he kind of became a little bit, I don't know, passively involved in politics, and basically half the country bashing him. But they are solid, they are not faced by that. I'm sorry, now I don't remember any particular story. Maybe it comes up later. Yeah.
No, people can find that YouTube video of him speaking in Thai when he does shed those tears. The name of the talk is Shedding Tears in Amazement. And it comes up, it's transcribed into English in a book called Arahatamagga Arahatapala, The Path to Arahantship. And people can find that Ajahn Dick talk on the Abhayagiri website. And we'll see if we can put some links to that. But yeah, just to step back a little bit, I think some people, as you're saying, inside baseball, there's a lot of terms which people might not be familiar with. If you could maybe draw out or explain what are the Dhammayut and Mahanikaya sects in Thai Buddhism, and also what's the difference between a forest monastery versus a city monastery, and if you could, a practice monastery and a study monastery. So it's 3 different pairs, but see what you can do.
Yeah. Sometimes they intersect, sometimes not. So yeah, I mean, they're in Thailand. Many don't know. We have 2 different monastic sects, or tradition. Sect sounds so bad in Western language, but 2 different monks traditions, or sangvasas, basically, which do not do Sangha Karma together, basically not operate or live together. And one is called the Mahanikaya sect. Nikaya means basically sect or faction, and the Mayutta Nikaya, which is the new kind of 250 years old new reform sect, which is the smallest part. Maybe, I don't know the numbers, but it feels like maybe 10% or even 8% of the Thai Sangha is from this Dhammayut order, but has royal patronage, because King Rama IV, I think, was a monk for 20 years before, and he was so disappointed with the state of the Sangha at that time, was around 17th century, and that he re-established a new sect. He went to the Shan states, found this tribe called the Mons, and they kept some monastic culture with an intact Vinaya lineage alive, so they believe. And he reordained in that lineage, brought it back, and since he was, the prince, he established from scratch a new sect, and that took off because it had royal support. So, and all the other smaller sects got lumped into one big faction, and that's called Maha. Maha means great, means big, and that's what we call them now, the Mahanikaya. All the small sects from different parts of Thailand, and actually many lineages and sects, and they all kind of lumped together in this one faction. And the Dhammayut is basically kind of the rebel reform group. So Ajahn Man, so why this is important for our discussion is because Ajahn Sao, which was the teacher of Ajahn Man, and they ordained in this Dhammayut Nikaya, which was tending to revive the Vinaya lifestyle. They started to study the suttas, the Vinayas, the commentaries, and try to distill or re-enliven a proper samana lifestyle according to the Vinaya. And that's what they did. And in that sect, Ajahn Man ordained. And Ajahn Sao and Ajahn Man, they started to experiment with these kind of Dhutanga practices and also try to find a way, to get to Nibbana, the way to meditation. And so we believe, I think, they were successful. And Ajahn Man became the pioneer of that tradition. And his style of practice, his lifestyle also, his understanding of how being a monk, how he follows the Vinaya, that became the model of what we live today, even in the Ajahn Chah tradition. So that's why the first generation of the forest, what we now call the Thai forest tradition, was mostly Dhammayut, because all his disciples, even if they were monks in the Mahanikai sect, they had to reordain in that new sect if they wanted to live with Ajahn Man. And that's what many did. And then that practice style, or that what we, I think, agree is kind of a more pure lifestyle, keeping the Vinaya and actually practicing meditation for liberation, was in the medium of the Dhammayut sect. But I want to make sure, and I learned this the hard way after I left the safe monastery after 3 vasa, first time alone on the road, that not all Dhammayut is practicing. So, it's a bit complicated. There are the study monks, right? Pariyat, also called ecclesiastical monks, or political monks, you can even say. They keep the Sangha system alive, and they study, they get degrees, and they're also a little bit involved with the state, you can say. And that's the normal lifestyle of a monk, and we call that normally the village monastery lifestyle or city monastery lifestyle. They are less meditating, they are more studying, also 4 degrees, and they make more social outreach, they make more teaching programs, charity. And these village monasteries, city monasteries tend to be focused on that. The downside of that is, because it's all good stuff, the downside historically seems to be that, if the meditation goes out of the window, what goes out of the window next is mostly the Vinaya. And the standard of the Vinaya in these monasteries, or basically in mainstream Thai Buddhism, is dismissal, to use a politically correct word, because you might have heard about the scandals which rocked Thailand big time this time. Yeah.
It's a pretty wide realm we're approaching for those who don't know it, but it really is interesting. And you have a perspective that we, as Ajahn Chah ordained monks, don't necessarily have as deep of a sort of insight into. You've practiced in Dhammayut monasteries with Ajahn Dik and Ajahn Nippon, and you've spent years at Nanachat. So can you tell us about your own experience of these two sects? Like, how does a Westerner experience these two flavors, and what does that mean for, you know, maintaining monks or monks flourishing in the holy life? Like, it's a fascinating difference in model, where Longpo Cha tends to be, you know, generally more communal. Dhammayut, sort of like the Green Berets of the forest, in, you know, some sense. And like, yeah. So what's your experience? Tell us about your journey through those two and the two flavors as they relate to Western monks.
Yeah, good question. It's interesting also for people who want to ordain, but I just can speak about my own experience, obviously. But it just made me laugh because Green Beret, yeah, we had once a short-term ordinate Thai man coming to our monastery in the early days. And we, in some monasteries of the Dhammayut, also in the Ajahn Chah tradition, we do everything kind of efficient and quick, isn't it? We do kind of things quick, not wasting time, being mindful. Everything is a little bit more quick. And in the Dhammayut scene, sometimes it ends up of running back from Pindabata to the monastery to be earlier there than the Ajahn, to, you know, to be able to wash his feet, to set up the bowl and stuff like that. And it's actually, sometimes it's even running, which is not so beautiful. And then that newly ordained monk said, I don't understand. Why do we have to do everything so quick? It's like Navy SEALs. It's crazy. It's like Navy SEALs. He said, yeah, you're right. It's actually like that. Yeah. So what's the difference? Okay, I ordained in the Dhammayut tradition, and back in the days, everything was a bit more tough, at least in my experience. You know, in the beginning, early days, we had no phones. Smartphones were just coming to the scene. I had no smartphone before. So, and I was basically in this outback monastery in a province nobody ever heard before, in the hills of Leh province. And it was a bit rough, you know, and the teacher was tough, but that's what we're all searching for, and we got it. I was lucky because I had Ajahn Dik, which was an American teacher, you know. So I had two Krooba Ajahns together, one Thai, one American. So that I was quite lucky. Also translation, I couldn't speak Thai, so he introduced us to that lifestyle. Ajahn Dik, quite grateful for that. But then Ajahn Dik left to establish a monastery in Virginia, quite famous monastery now, in Lexington, I think. And when he left, he took the most of the foreign monks with him. And then sometimes I was even the only foreign monk, foreign monk. And then I started to feel a bit lonely, and I had even just thought about this morning, like 1 week of hardcore depression. I felt so lonely and lost in the world. Obviously, I stuck it out and it just passed away, and I got happy again through the right practice. But that also showed me there was this kind of cultural element, this alienation, which we Western monks coming to this new culture have to go through. And basically, I left that monastery for some reason. I was a bit dissatisfied with some things, so I left. And somehow, by also funny coincidence, but that's not a too long story, I ended up in Nanachat, which I never wanted to go. I just wanted to check it out for 3-4 days because some Thai lady on the road forced me to go there. It really forced me to. She didn't let me go. And I said, okay, if the Devas really wanted I go there, I couldn't shake her off. She said, no, I'm a disciple of Ajahn Kevali. You have to go. You're a foreigner. You have to go to these foreigners. And I said, okay.
Buddhist
She
Thai women
gave me a bus ticket. Yeah, they're tough. So, okay, I won't make it short. I arrived in Wat Nanachat with kind of this, you know, arrogancy. This is not the real deal. But then I entered the gate, and many of you have the experience. You come to the gate and you get this peaceful vibe of a real forest monastery. And already I like this, like, whoa, this is a special place, interesting. And then I met these foreign monks, speaking English, are interested in the practice, interested in the suttas, and just having this a bit more Western environment there really soothed my heart, really was good for me at the time. And I'm grateful they took me on, even though I came from another sect, but they knew my teacher and the quality of my teacher, so they took me on, and I became kind of a Wat Banana Chat monk, and I feel still affiliated to that tradition. So I had then some insight there, and we followed the same Kovat, the same practice tradition of Ajahn Man, right? Ajahn Chah he did not live long with Ajahn Man, but got a crucial teaching in how to practice and how to take care of the Vinaya, that he also got some good results, Ajahn Chah, but he was not reordained in this Dhammayut order and took that style of practice, the Ajahn Man style of practice, the Dutanga style of practice, into the Mahanikai sect. And this are you two friends are part of that sect. But we have the same ideas about the Vinaya, the same practice style, and the same Kovat, which are the etiquettes, the daily routines and the etiquettes, how to wear robe, how to eat, and how to live a samana life. So that's the same. But as you mentioned, in my experience, in the Dhammayut scene, it is more green beret. Everything is more hardcore. Not in all monasteries, obviously, and I haven't lived in so many, but in the majorities, and especially the ones I liked in the beginning, there are these kind of fierce teachers who inherited their style from their teacher, which was Ajahn Man, then Ajahn Mahapua, Luang Por Chop, which were kind of, I call them Isan cowboys. Isan is a northeastern Thailand. It's a special part of Thailand, which is more culturally related to Laos. And historically, it was a kind of a poorer rural area. And the poorer it is, the tougher the people are, and a little bit more uneducated. But these Ajahns were pioneers in achieving path, fruit, and Nibbana. And their style tends to be a little bit more tough. But it's successful. And the Ajahn Chah tradition, and the genius of Ajahn Chah, in my perspective, is that he created a model, a system. Before he passed away, he created a system of rules which survives his passing away. And we still have the living tradition, still good quality. I mean, deterioration you find everywhere, but it's still one of the most precious, high standard traditions I know in the world, actually. And it still works. It still produces good monks, as I see with you guys. And but in the Dhammayut scene, what tends to happen is one of the Ajahns becomes famous, like Ajahn Mahapua or others, and they attract a large following of disciples, monks, lay people. They become famous, and when they pass away, the monastery tends to implode. Then infighting comes. The disciples start. Who getting who inherits the Dhamma? Who is the Dhamma heir? Who takes the abbotship? And that gets ugly. That's Sangha politics, and I see it everywhere. People should not have these delusions that all monks are holy men and everything is peaceful. No, we have still kilesas, most of us, and even in these famous monasteries, it's still the world. It still operates in samsara, and these infightings tend to make the quality of that practice monastery kind of collapse. And I see it all the time. And why that happens is because there is no centralization. And the Ajahn Chah model has a centralized, like Wat Nong Papong or Wat Banana Chart for the foreigners, is the central head, which has a kind of a supervision and quality control. Some people don't like it. Obviously, there's pro and cons to it. But I see it's for the long-term survival and keeping the quality alive. The Ajahn Chah model is much more beneficial, because I now see the Dhammayut or the Ajahn Mahapua passed away, who was a bit the unofficial leader, because nearly everybody had respect for him. They listened to him, so he was the leader and kept, the branch monasteries and all these different Dhammayut practice monasteries streamlined a little bit. And after he passed away, I see factionalization. Every monastery becomes their own thing, their own little sect, their own style. Sometimes there's some quarreling. It's still good. There's still teachers out there, good monasteries, but I think they're getting less. And the Ajahn Chah model seems to be longer lasting and spread into the world, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, there is.
You have the newest Saka, the newest branch.
Well, there's a lot of consistency when we, ordaining at Abhayagiri. It was very, very easy for me in my third year in robes to go to Nanachat, and the chanting is basically the same. All of the Korwat, which is the monastic protocols, all the habits are basically the same. It was very easy to adjust from one to another, just slight differences in my experience. One word which you've used is dutanga, which is a Pali word referring to the optional ascetic practices like living in the forest or going on alms round or only wearing rag robes or only wearing 3 robes. So minimizing the requisites that you have. And one way that manifests, these are optional practices. The Buddha said, didn't mandate these for everybody. But yeah, they're still practiced in the Ajahn Chah and the Dhammayut tradition, and the way that they're kind of held in Thailand. Another word you've used is tudong, which involves those ascetic practices, and especially emphasizing the aspect of walking from place to place, to living in forests and going for alms and living alone, or sometimes in a group. But I'm curious if you could we've talked with some people who've done tudong in Sri Lanka, some who've done it in America, and I'm just curious if you could talk to the specifics of your tudong practice in Thailand, the practicalities of it. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. My beloved Thailand, it is the easy way. It's kind of, there's not much to it. In Thailand, you survive more easy because people have so much faith, probably in Sri Lanka too, maybe even more, I've heard sometimes. But props to our friends who do it in the West, because that's much more challenging. And some of your friends, I listened to the podcast, live like that for months and years. So wow, that's great. Good pioneer work. Anumodana to them. Yeah, in Thailand, it's much more easy. And there are different styles of tudong, but I don't know if it's time for that, but I don't call it tudong anymore. I call it charika, like I think many of your friends also call it charika, which is the original word from the Pali Suttas, which means wandering. That's what the Buddha did and his disciples. They just, after the rains retreat, they just pack their stuff and just walk through the countryside to the next villages, to the next town, until they get an invitation or find a spot for meditation. And so they moved around their whole life, basically, this nomadic lifestyle. And that's what I try to practice right now. So I'm actually not engaging much into these tutanga practices. So I became quite liberal and loose a little bit. But some are still integrated there, sleeping on a charnel ground, which is a really good place to sleep in Thailand. But sometimes I eat twice or even 3 times on the road. So I became less strict in the tutanga sense. So, and many people in the West, they don't know what is this tudong, which is a Thai, a Thai word coming from this tutanga, which actually has nothing to do with the walking. You agree, right? There's nothing walking inside. I think how it became connected with walking is, back in the days, the monks, they lived in monasteries, and when they tried to start to take up one of these practices or many of these practices, you hardly can do it in the monastery, especially not in a ancient Thai village monasteries. They look down on you, like nobody meditates. You are not getting strict. Like, we are eating twice. How do we look if you just eat 1 meal a day? Or you are going pindapata and we just getting cooked the food every time. So that doesn't go together. So these monks had to go to places, right? And some of the tutangas, you need special places. You need the charnel ground, which is often not in the monastery. You need a tree, which is sometimes also not in the monastery. The open, and so you need to go away from the monastery to search for these places to practice these ascetic styles. And I think the walking, because there were no cars back in the days, so they had to leave the monastery and roaming around for a cave, for a charnel ground, for whatever is conducive. And I think that wandering around in that style became known as tudong, which is basically the wandering around now, but has nothing to do with the wandering itself. So I just want to clarify that, because even Thai people, they don't know about it. So yeah, so there are different versions of going on charika or on tudong. You search for a place to practice, which is more conducive than the monastery, like a cave, charnel ground. And then you stay there for a while, practice meditation, and then move on. Another version is, after your 5 vasa, you have now your freedom, you are eligible to go out on your own, if the Ajahn lets you. And then you search for different teachers. And you also walk to these different teachers, which are, you get some insider information, where's a good monastery to learn from, where the Krooba Ajahns, and they tend to walk, through the country and living with these different teachers. Another style is just the adventure part. And I think that's what is right now in Thailand became the tudong. Like when I meet Thai monks, normally they are in groups with their buddies, 3 or 4, huge machetes, a backpack full of mama noodles, instant noodles, and then they're going to the deep jungle forest and have these kind of cowboy boy adventures, and they come back and then they can tell some tiger stories, but mostly they don't follow the Vinaya. They cut the trees with a knife, which is illegal. They cook their own food mostly. So this is the style I see, and this is not what I'm doing or my peers are doing. We try to follow the Vinaya, which implies that you need civilization, which you need villages to feed you every day. Or you fast for a few days, but how long can you fast, So you cannot actually go to the deep jungle and live there as a monk who follows the Vinaya. And the Buddha, in my opinion, set this up to keep the symbiosis between lay people and forest monks or monks alive. And this tudong became kind of this adventure style. So still, even without the machete and the noodles in the backpack, many monks, including our Ajahns, did that back in the days. They went more to the forests and hang around the hill tribe people. So you still get fed, but you're still in the deeper forest, mostly hilly area, and you have your adventures and find more conducive places to practice in solitude. So this is the style of our forest tradition, the original style of Ajahn Mun. But I changed my type of wandering in 2019, because I did for many years. I went to all the famous places where a good tudong monk should go, and tested myself and nearly lost my life a few times. And then I kind of had enough. Why, it's not really conducive for me. I like it. I like this nature aspect, but just I don't know. It was not for me anymore. And then I thought, hey, in the suttas, the Buddha and his disciples, they were just wandering. I don't find any instance, actually, maybe but the monks going to the wilderness, searching for these deep places, actually. No, they're mostly wandering from city to city. And this I started and just called it charika, and walked from North Thailand to many places. From A to B, basically. I had kind of a goal. And for me personally, that works, right? But there's another style. You just roam on and go where the wind blows you. But for me personally, that made my mind agitated, and I could never settle down. I can meditate for 2-3 days and I say, where could I go next? So this doesn't work for me, but for some of my friends, that's their style, to get deeper to meditation. But I like to make these long walks now.
That was a great rundown. And I kind of am curious with the 2 different styles you talked about. Well, first, just once you've sort of mentioned near-death tudong experiences, I feel like I inevitably want to ask about just a story or 2 about either just some of those interesting moments in tudong, not necessarily a near-death, but sleeping in a charnel ground, or an encounter with wild animals or something like that. Just, do you have any kind of stories from tudong to share with some of the more interesting ones, just because those are a lot of fun?
Yeah, I thought about before, and my memory is kind of blurry, because I lived that lifestyle for so long and it becomes so normal that I don't remember these things. And definitely nearly every day, like you mentioned, Ajahn Yaniko gave this wonderful talk about his experience. And and you guys know yourself, you are tudong monks yourself. that the magic happens every day and great stories. You could write a book after 1 week of tudong, stories, but somehow they don't come up. But some traumatic ones stuck in mind was with another monk. Normally I'm alone, but twice I went, I introduced some younger monks into the lifestyle, and we went to Tung Yai National Park, which is the wild west of Thailand, bordering to Burma, to the Shan states, which is always, in war, civil war, whatever. So it's a bit dangerous there, but that's the place you have to earn your badge as a real tudong monk in Thailand. All the Krooba Ajahns, Ajahn Yana Dhammo, and so they all pass through that. They all know the place quite well, Ajahn Siripanyo and so on. So we went there because we want real nature, the real adventure. And then you get lost in the forest, and that's one of the most scariest thing. You just walk in the jungle, and then you lose the path under your feet, and it's just an animal track. And what do you do? The water runs out, and then that's the most tudong monk perish in that way, because I never met a tiger. I think no, maybe a bear, but I have not much encounters. I'm more afraid of people. And of my own defilements. So basically, one day we got lost on the Burmese border. I don't know, can I tell the story? It's actually illegal. Okay, maybe it's many years passed. So we walked, and we were walking out of Dowdam, branch monastery of Wat Bananachad, and got lost in the jungle. But our destination for the day was a Thai military base, which has faith in monks, and we could sleep there and get some food. But I think we were not even close. So we got lost and just walked on, followed animal track. And then I heard gunshots. Bum, 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 bum. And I said, okay, that's the military base. They have the firing range. Wonderful. So I got uplifted and just walking towards these sounds. And then they became louder. And then I got scared. I said, if we kind of walk into a shooting range or an active war, we might get shot. And then I got scared, and we just ducked through the bush. And then we came out to a clearing, and there was a small boy from a hill tribe or something, and an older one, and they were slash and burning bamboo. And when bamboo burns in a wildfire, these compartments explode because of the pressure, and they sound like gunshots, at least to an unexperienced ear like mine. So we didn't find a military base, so we tried to ask them where we are, where's the next civilization, and they did not understand our language, no Thai, no English, nothing, which was pretty weird. But somehow they showed us there is a dirt track, and finally we found the dirt track, followed it along, came to the first village, and figured out we are not in Thailand anymore. We crossed border to Burma. It's the only time I was in Burma, without passport, without visa, unintentionally, I'm sorry. So I was a bit scared, because our Ajahn, before he let us go, said, do not cross into Burma. It causes huge problems if you get. And I said, okay, now our life is over. I was a bit scared, because I had this responsibility for this younger monk, Ajahn Gunakaro, by the way, our good friend, Nepalese monk, who's now taking care of the new Indian monastery. So we camped out somewhere on a river. The next morning, we tried to get pindabat food in this kind of Christian Karen village. Didn't get any food. And Ajahn Gunakaro never fasted in his life, and it's the first time on tudong, his first few days. So I was a bit worried he will not kind of make it. I can fast a bit. But then it became 11 o'clock, and I thought, wow, today we're really not getting any food. So we walk on, come to a little curve, and meet a river. And on the riverbank, I see 3 people like 100 meters away on a table playing cards. And one of these guys sees us and quickly approaches us. And I see he has a green uniform on, and it's completely green. And I knew that it was not Thai army. It was the Burmese army. And then I thought, now it's over. Now we're getting put into the dungeon, tortured, whatever. Because it was actually a war zone. Didn't know that at that time at all. And that it was a younger captain, the head of this platoon, came kind of running towards us and stopped in front of me. And I was kind of shocked, didn't know what to do, just felt my body in my breath, like, okay, now let go. Whatever happens, happens. And it was 11 o'clock, at 12 o'clock, we cannot eat anymore. And the first thing he says in broken English, sir, have you eaten already? And I couldn't believe it. It's like unbelievable. This is one of my, highlights of my tudong life. It was amazing. And I said, by coincidence, no, we didn't get any food back in the village. He said, we want to give you food. And I said, yes, but my friend, you have to hurry. You have 45 minutes left. And he ran up the hill, which they dug out a campsite. There was a platoon of 50 soldiers or something. He ran up there. They materialized a meal. I don't know how quick, really quick, brought back 2 liters cold Fanta and put us a table on the river and gave us the meal. And we just gobbled down the last 10 minutes, all the stuff, chucked the Fanta down, and we were so happy. But after the meal, they said, we invite you to our camp for the night. And he said, no, thank you. We move on. We have to go back to Thailand. Basically, we're here by coincidence. And they insisted. And I said, no, we cannot. I'm sorry, no, we cannot live with the soldiers. No, it's not good. And we wanted to walk away, but they did not let us walk away. And I thought, okay, no. Now we get arrested after they feed us the meal. So they took us to their camp. And admittedly, I was a bit scared, a bit worried. And then it turned out, like in the first encounter, completely different. They had so much faith in the monks. We got a special little, it was on a hill. There was an old monastery site, and there was a little intact sala and another building where all the soldiers slept in. And I looked into the sleeping quarters of the soldiers and the bed of the captain. And there was this huge Buddha picture on his wall. And it turned out that he's a meditator. He meditates every morning, every night, and has some of his guys also meditate with him. So I was really lucky finding this good soldier who had so much faith and was practicing. And they took really care of us. We were the guests of honor. We even at night, he told this corporal, now massage them. And we like, oh, it's okay. No, we get you a massage. And this corporal kind of starts to touch these foreigners and squeeze them. But it was nice, after tudong getting a massage, it was wonderful. But a bit awkward in candlelight with these soldiers, and they were looking at us. Letting the corporals just do the dirty work, and they were just like, yeah. And then the next day before the meal, they said, oh, like a kilometer down, there is a little shady hill. We want to visit you, the shady. We want to go with you. I said, oh, okay. Do I have a choice? No. So they gave us 2 escort soldiers with heavy machine guns, Rambo style, and Rambo comes at the end of this story. Remember Rambo? With ammunition belts and grenades, and I never see that in my life. And one in front of us, one in the back, and escorted us over the rice fields to that shady which was on top of a hill. So we climbed up, and it turned out they are right now digging another campsite up there, like Rambo style, like with a spade, ducking out the bamboo sticking out, the sharpened bamboo on the side as a fence. It was crazy. So then we paid respects to the chedi. Then we went back, and they gave us the meal again, and all the soldiers, 50 soldiers, sitting around us in a half circle, offering us the meal on a little table. We give the blessing, and normally in Thailand, everybody disperses and leaves the monk alone to eat, right? And normally, we sit down and wait, and nobody moves. They just sit there and stare at us in a half circle. And I said, okay. And I started to eat really with unease feeling. And then Ajahn Gunakro told me, I think that's tradition, that they look darshan, look at the monk eating their offered meal. And that's what happened. It was so uncomfortable, I couldn't even concentrate on eating. Yeah. And there was a guy next to us with a fan and fanning us. So it was the real deal. It was amazing. And after the meal, one of the sergeants come and gives me a phone, Samsung phone or something, and shows us a movie. He's like, look here, please, go, look, and shows us a movie. I said, what's that? And he shows us a movie, Rambo 4. There was a new Rambo after a long hiatus. I don't know if you remember, there was a new Rambo movie, maybe 10 years ago or something. I didn't know about that. So it was a new Rambo, which was playing in Burma, and the Burmese army has not a good reputation in that it was the villain, like kidnapping Americans and torturing them, like super evil soldiers. And Rambo comes and kills them all, and rescues the American hostages. So, and they were so offended by that Hollywood propaganda, and told me, "You go back to your country, please. Tell all of your country this is not real. The Burmese army, they are some good soldiers. We are not like that. This is propaganda. This is American propaganda. Please tell them. And I said, I try my best, but I'm not from America. I'm a German. They didn't care. I'm a Caucasian, and yeah. So basically, I gave them a promise that I will. Now I have American audience, and I fulfilled my promise.
Yes. May there be Hollywood
Yes.
executives watching
Yes.
right now, and in case they make Rambo
Yes.
5 or 6, don't
Yes.
disparage the Burmese people. I love it.
Yes. So the soldiers we lived with, they were really, really nice to us. But obviously they have a bad reputation, like every army does not so good things. But my experience with that, I was so delighted. And the next day he brought us to the Thai border, which we just crossed somehow. And they say goodbye. And they even, as I remember clearly, I think he had tears in his eyes. He said, please come back, please come back. And why they treated us so well is because they haven't seen a monk for 6 months. And Burmese, Thais, Sri Lankans, they love to once in a while make merit with the monk. They feel good. And they haven't seen, because they get conscripted with 18. I had some conversations with them. They don't volunteer mostly. They get just, tracked 18, and they hardly see their families. Maybe once in 2 years. One guy hasn't seen his family for 4 years. And no monks, in these Shan states, there are no monks. So that's why seeing us, they completely jump on us. It was a beautiful experience. Yes. I hope they're well and still alive.
I would love it if Rambo 5 was this story and just filmed. It's
so, Ajahn, that is such a great story, because it really blends kind of the hardness of a tudong life, and really what attracts many of us Western monks to go and ordain is visions of being super hardcore, getting the real deal, going back to nature and living super simply and being very ascetic. But with the softness of the generosity that the Burmese people showed you, the smoothness of having a friend with you. And I'm curious, you spoke a little bit about that period when things were dark in your monastic life. And I think it's really common that somebody who ordains in a very ascetic lineage just dries up after not too long. And I'm curious if you could talk about the soft skills for a hard life. What can actually bring joy, even if you're living in a very rough way.
Yes, thank you, Ajahn. We are not in prison, which you mostly go into by force. We choose the places to train, and we can leave anytime. So that pressure is not there. So we're searching for these tough places, actually. But once then you live in it, and you're kind of locked into it, and you with these kind of tough environments, you pressure your defilements. That's the whole purpose of it, to purify them quicker. That's what these ascetic practices are for. But yeah, sometimes you're weak, you're not up to the task, and then you get some sadness, some loneliness coming up, and everybody experienced that until we get liberation. But what intuitively I figured out, that you have to keep yourself happy a little bit. The most important part is, and I think you friends agree, that you need kalyana mittas. You need noble friendships with other monks who are maybe your peers. They can be older or younger, but someone to have actually a kalyana mittaship with. And I find this essential, and I have a good fortune of having a few, especially one particular good kalyana mitta, Ajahn Upasamo, who. We are on the same level of Dhamma. We can speak Dhamma. We love the Dhamma. We love the Vinaya. And sometimes in dark times, like now with the phone, I call him or he calls me, and we just have a little session of monk friends, because you cannot do that with a lay person, right? You cannot open your heart as a monk to a lay person. There's some rules about it. So you need monastic friends, and somehow I don't see it much. I don't know. That's my experience. It's a bit of this loner culture around, but I need that, and I established that, and I find friends who reciprocate. So I'm quite happy, and that gives me happiness. Or then helping friends if they are in need. So this gives you some purpose, uplift, and also finding some hobbies. In Thailand, like my Ajahn here, my new Ajahn, always speaks about Kriyang Yu. A monk needs a Kriyang Yu, which translates basically as a hobby, as a as something to do in the monastic life, not just meditation. For example, teaching. Like you have this, both of you, this wonderful gift of teaching, the gift of the gap, teaching, being knowledgeable because you studied and practiced a lot. So you go more that route. That is a purpose which fulfills you in a sense on top of your meditation. So this would be one. Many become abbots. Of our sangha age, monastic age, they became abbots. Like hopefully you soon become one. That would be a purpose. But it's not for everybody. This is not what I aspire to or what I would be good at, I think. Learning a language, learning a culture. In our tradition, some physical skills like carpentry, making, sewing, getting good at sewing. Something which you can benefit yourself and the monastic community, for example. All these things, monks who find a little niche, a little hobby, it's strange, but you have to have a hobby, or building monasteries, building kuttis. Some Thai monks dedicate their life just to building, to making merit, to help the sasana, the Buddhist teachings and the sangha to spread and keep alive in Thailand. And so they specialize for that. And it gives them purpose, uplift and happiness, and they seem to survive. And I had a conversation with Ajahn Jayasaro once, and he agreed that you need something which maintains you, which gives you uplift. And in my case, obviously, and many monks do that, choose this charika lifestyle, and I get uplifted. I'm so happy. I always, when I call Ajahn Upasamo, I said, or both, like we have this kind of vibe and say, living the dream, isn't it? Living the dream.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really, it's the holy life. It's it's the most precious lifestyle you can have. And then finding your niche, doing what your ideals, I followed my ideals, and it comes from this Ajahn Man, Ajahn Mahabua, more, wandering lifestyle. And I had to fight hard for it. It's kind of looked down today. You don't find many monks doing it anymore for whatever reason. But I knew I want to do that at least until my health fails, which sometimes here and there, body falls apart. It's like one day you cannot do it anymore. But until I can, I want to move around a bit, and I gain nothing but good. Speaking with Ajahn Tanpoli.
Clean, holy life, clean as a polished conch shell. And Ajahn, we do have to switch over to Zoom in a second, and I'm going to paste the link into the chat for people who want to continue. And we get Ajahn Dan Thiracitto there as well, along with the birds that have been in our interview too, which has been great.
Yes. And not Ajahn Dan Thiracitto, because
Dan.
there's a famous other Ajahn. Dan Thiracitto. It's the same Pali name than me. It's the same Pali name.
I made the mistake.
I'm not that one.
I made the mistake on YouTube actually looking for your talks. But I wondered if just in the last minute or two, you could, for those lay people listening, of which most of the listeners probably are, you've had exposure to people who have realized, the path and the fruit of this dispensation and of the Noble Eightfold Path. Do you just have any words of encouragement for someone who's listening who doesn't know if these things even exist, or if they could ever attain, some liberation of heart? What advice would you give, or what words of encouragement?
Yeah, that's a difficult question, Ajahn. That because you can never prove it. I recently was in India, and they also asked me about, where are the Arahants? And I said, yes, even if I tell you, I believe some teacher is an Arahant, you can never prove it. You always will have doubts if you have no faith. How to build up that faith? If you want, you don't have to. But obviously for my own journey, for my own path, that was essential, that I get the faith that there is a living human being who achieved that goal, the end goal of the Buddha's teachings, Nibbana, liberation, stopping the ending of mental suffering. And I read this teaching, as I explained, from Lungta Mahabua, even just in translation, in written language, and it touched my heart so much that I decided to become a monk, basically. And I don't know how I did that, but I was a Buddhist, basically, for 9 years before, and I accumulated so much information and kept the Dhamma alive in the background of my mind. Actually, what I haven't tell you, since my first monastery experience in Sydney, Australia, 2001, I wanted to become a monk, but I was not ready. I was too weak. I didn't know much about Buddhism, but I had this yearning, this urge. And, then I had a normal life and, still, romance, and still want to have the pleasures of the world. But deep in my mind, I always kept this wish. I nourished it a bit. That one day, if I have a life crisis, if everything falls apart, I have a choice. I don't have to kill myself, which is not a good option, not a good option at all. But we Westerners do not have sometimes an alternative. The Asians, the Thais, they just have a monastery around the corner, and then if they have depression or a quarrel with their wife, they just run to the monastery to cool down, or maybe even ordain to get, to follow the path. But I nourished that. I never let the Buddhism kind of fade away completely, and I nourished that aspiration a bit. And I knew one day, I will get sick, someone will die I love, and that might have triggered me, and I have the option for this holy life. And I would encourage people to keep at the Dhamma, to keep in touch with Sangha, with teachers, with fellow meditators, and nourish that. And the more you understand the Dhamma yourself, the more you see the special characteristics in these beings, not necessarily be completely enlightened, some are, I believe, but even if they have a bit of Dhamma experience, they have qualities which inspire you, and you want to emulate that, and you become the disciples and learn the way how they got to it. But you can never prove if someone is enlightened. So that, we quarrel. I mean, I nearly lost friends, monks friends, discussing or arguing about, oh, my teacher is an arahant. No, he's not. He smiles too much. He cannot be an arahant. I really had fallout with monks. That can happen. We were still young and stupid, but that still happens. Also with lay people, and it's so unnecessary. Watch out. It's defilement. It's you cannot prove it. Have faith and do actually what the teacher says. So I don't know if that answered the question, but just practice yourself, and then then you have to live with these teachers. You have to go and check for yourself. There's so much information now with these online communities. Go on Reddit and you get all the details about any, how one Ajahns farts smell. I mean, you get all detailed info these days, but you have to get the vibe yourself and make your own opinion. You cannot trust anybody. And therefore you have to live closer and longer with them. And mostly what happens when you ordain, then you get quite close to these teachers, and then you see the real deal, because you're so close, physically close to them. And then some of them reveal themselves, and some, they keep consistency and just impress you on and on with their equanimity, with their metta. I think that's all I can contribute to that.
It's perfect. There's a image that the Buddha gives in Majjhima Nikaya 48 that just as a mother cow would always be mindful of her calf, even as she grazed, even so, though one takes care of various duties, one remains intent on heightened training of, virtue, mind, and wisdom. And just that sense of nourishing that kind of precious part of us that orients towards the Dhamma. So, Ajahn, it's been so great having you on, and we hope we can get you to wander over someday. We will have 2-liter Fantas for you if you do come. So,
what is that? I didn't hear the last word.
We will have a 2-liter Fanta for you if you do come. Ramen noodles as well. But really, it is rare to meet a monk that's actually so joyful and living such a pure, holy life in line with these ancient traditions. You're keeping alive something very important, and we just really want to honor you for that. So thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much for the invitation, but I'm also a modern tudong monk. I have a phone and I have some conveniences. I use a tent since a few years, so not that the people get the idea I'm this super ascetic monk, which you had some conversations with already. And, anumodana to these monks, they do the real deal. I'm a bit more sabai, as we say in Thailand. Now, thank you very much for the invitation, Ajahns. And I wish you well establishing this new community. It's beautiful to see how also these lay people respond there. It's amazing. And I wish you all the best for that.
Thanks so much, Ajahn.